Good. The model that we've got here is equipped with the M Sport Pro Pack. Now, it's a £2,200 optional extra and comes with these 19-inch wheels, adaptive suspension, and a small boot spoiler. And a car. That's the car. Doesn't come with a free car. Do you love the BMW 3 Series, but you're worried that going for a petrol or diesel model would melt the polar ice caps? Well, there isn't an electric car just yet, nor can you get a hydrogen model, but you can get one of these, the 330e plug-in hybrid. It's the 3 Series we all know and love, but you can now drive for limited periods of time on electrical energy alone. But there are so many different models of 3 Series available, so is now the time to go for a 330e, or should you wait for an all-electric model, the upcoming i4? Let's get straight to it. The 330e is powered by a 2-litre turbocharged 4-cylinder engine that's mated to an electric motor with a combined output of 288 bhp. Now, as standard, power is sent to the rear wheels, but you can spec an xDrive all-wheel drive option if you hate drifting. The motor is connected to a 12 kWh battery, which is good for a WLTP range of up to 36 miles according to BMW. And because this is a hybrid, CO2 figures are nice and low at around 30 to 38 grams per kilometre, depending on which trim you go for. So in terms of design, what sets the 330e apart from the rest of the 3 Series range? Well, BMW doesn't tend to litter its electric cars with neon highlights, so spotting the difference can be nearly impossible. There are, however, some small differences, and those are a charging door and the badge. The model that we've got right here is equipped with the M Sport Pro Pack. Now, it's a £2,200 optional extra and comes with 19-inch wheels, adaptive suspension, and a small boot spoiler. There's gloss black highlights everywhere as well, because how else are you meant to tell people you're a commuter and a fan of performance cars? Some hybrid cars have smaller boots than their combustion engine rivals because the rear is typically the best place to store the batteries. Unfortunately, the 330e is no exception. If I open up the boot, we'll find 375 litres of storage. That's 105 litres less than the petrol or diesel 3 Series and matches that of the 1 Series. Yes, you can lower the boot floor to open up a little bit more room, but then you also need to consider the charging cables, and they're chunky. Of course, if you hate the people that you're travelling with, you could always ask them to carry it for you.
Do I really have to hold these?
Mate, the boot is packed with camera stuff. The 330e is available in 3 different trim levels. The entry-level SE comes in at £39,345 and is loaded with kits such as LED headlights, automatic cruise control, a reversing camera, and a 9-inch infotainment system. The £40,745 Sport model adds a few luxuries such as leather seats, sportier looks, hence the name, and a set of 18-inch wheels. At the top of the range is the M Sport at £41,450, which comes with an even sportier body kit, a 12.3-inch infotainment display, and a sport steering wheel. It's amazing just how big cars are today. If you take away the 2 Series Gran Coupe, which is technically a 4-door coupe, the 3 Series is the smallest conventional saloon BMW makes. However, it's just so roomy in here, and to be honest, it feels massive. Build quality is also incredible. You've got leather pretty much everywhere in this M Sport model. You've also got soft touch surfaces on top of the dashboard. And while there are some cheaper plastics here and there, you're either never going to see them or you're probably not going to touch them. There's plenty of storage to play with in the 330e. So under this cover, we've got 2 decent sized cup holders with a conventional USB charger as well as a 12-volt socket. Under the armrest, I've got a really big storage bin, nice and wide and pretty deep, but there's a newer USB-C type connection in here as well. Now, if those chargers weren't enough, we've also got a wireless charger at the base of the dashboard. So if you're using wireless Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, you can charge your phone up without having to plug it in. Last but not least, you've got another cup holder in the door, just in case you're the kind of person that likes to have 2 drinks at once. Now, the 330e comes with the latest version of BMW's iDrive software, which is version 7. And it's one of the best infotainment systems there is. Not only is it really slick to use and very stylish, but it's crammed full of information. So let's say if you wanted to check out the efficiency data of your journey this morning, you can do so. You can even change certain aspects of the driving mode, such as steering weight and the stiffness of the suspension. You also get a digital instrument cluster with the 330e, which gives you all the information that you could need, such as, of course, speed and the amount of fuel you've got left, but also the battery charge. Now, there's also a section in the center of the display where you can either see the map or the media options, but the only problem I have is that customizing it can be a little bit clunky because you've got to go through several menus in the central display. I wish you could change it on the steering wheel like you can do with Audi's virtual cockpit. BMW has put just as much effort in the back as it has done in the front. There is so much room back here. So I'm 180 centimeters and there's loads of headroom. I think if you're 6 foot, you'll be absolutely fine back here. And legroom, there is just an abundance of it. So the seat's in my driving position, but there is so much space still to go. And if you're really tall, the backs of the seats are slightly caved in, so there's a little bit more space. Things would be a little bit tighter if you sat in the center because there really is quite a chunky transmission tunnel. It means you're going to have to spread your legs out, but because it is so spacious, you're not really going to worry about it all that much. Now, if there's no one sat in the middle, you can bring down the armrest and we've got a pair of cup holders in here. Installing a child seat is also really simple. You've got ISOFIX points at the bottom of the seat and they're protected by small little plastic caps that aren't detachable, so you don't need to worry about losing them. Last but not least, you've got climate controls in the back so your rear passengers won't roast on a hot day like it is today. And finally, you've also got 2 USB-C ports. Now, you might be a bit disappointed that they're not conventional USB cables, but USB-C is the future, and the 330e is a car of the future until the electric one arrives, and that will be the car of the future. This will just be old. Okay, let's get straight to it. How many miles was I able to cover on electric power alone? Well, when I charged this up overnight, I didn't get the full 36 miles as is claimed by BMW, and there are a number of reasons for that. Sometimes it can be due to the heat, so if it's a particularly cold day, the battery won't perform as well as if it was warm. Today was actually quite toasty. So the big factor of why I didn't get the full 36 when I charged up is because I didn't have it in a particularly economically friendly setting. It's been quite a warm day today. I've wanted the air conditioning on, I've wanted to listen to music, so I've had a few luxuries. So when it was all charged up, I got about 30 miles. Now, my test route today has been pretty mixed. I've done a little bit of dual carriageway and I've also done a fair amount of rural roads, and the overall journey was 22 miles. So I left my house this morning with 30 miles of electric range for a 22-mile journey, and by the time I arrived I had about 2 or 3 miles left in the battery, which in my opinion is still pretty good. I wasn't driving in a way that was trying to save energy, I was just trying to drive in a manner that I think most people would. So 25 miles from a charge doesn't seem too bad, given that I wasn't driving in a manner to save energy. But here's where the problem comes in. I live in a flat in London, and the closest charger I have is in a local car park. So I left this to charge overnight. I think it probably had about 8 miles left in the tank battery, and it was on a relatively slow charger. It was a 7 kilowatt charger. So I thought I would leave it overnight, and the amount that it cost me the next day was £22. Now that just seems utterly ridiculous, because if I'm filling this car up with petrol as well, you're looking at a bill of close to £70 to run a car that's meant to be good for the environment. Yes, I understand that there are different charging methods, so some people will have a faster charger near them that will also be cheaper. You also have subscription plans. And of course, if you're lucky and you are able to have this car in your driveway, you can charge it overnight and it's going to be much cheaper. Let's say you live in a city and you need a car like this. You need the electrical power when you're driving around the city and the combustion engine to kick in when you're on the motorway. But where are you going to charge it without it costing an arm and a leg? That's not as much of a problem with a fully electric car, because even if you charge using one of the more extortionate chargers, it's still going to be cheaper than filling up a petrol or diesel car. But in something like this, you're filling two tanks. You're filling a battery and the petrol tank. And for me, that just seems a little bit ridiculous. I can see exactly why you would want one if you live outside of an urban area and you are able to charge at home overnight, or you've got quite a cheap charging solution out the front of your house on the street. But I can imagine that a lot of people are going to be stuck. Anyway, with that out of the way, has the switch to a hybrid powertrain had any effect on the way the 3 Series drives? You know, the reason that people go for BMWs is because they're the more driver-friendly cars of all of the German car manufacturers. Yes, you still get a really good drive with something from Audi or Mercedes, but BMWs, and particularly the 3 Series, are just a little bit better in lots of different departments that make for an overall better driving experience. And that can be said for the 330e. So I would say the big difference between this and the BMW's rivals is the way that the steering feels. Now, a lot of cars from rival firms, from Audi and Mercedes, the steering is still, it's nice and tight and it's sharp, but you sometimes feel like you have a slight disconnect between turning the wheel and the front wheels turning. Now, while the BMW is still numb, you're not going to feel all the nooks and crannies and bumps in the road in the palm of your hand. You have this wonderful directness between what you do on the steering wheel and how the front wheels react. It's very, very small compared to, again, rival cars, but the outcome is really noticeable. It makes the BMW a car you can really drive with confidence. So let's answer the big question. Why should you buy a 330e instead of waiting for an i4? Well, first of all, I think the i4 will be quite expensive when it launches. And although prices for this start at around £40,000, I think that's going to be quite a bit cheaper than going for an all-out electric saloon. So that's one reason. And reason number two is that I think if you want electric, if you want some kind of electric power in your life or zero emission driving, then you've got quite a lot of range in this. You've also got a really excellent package, which is the 3 Series. And I think in those regards, the 330e does really well. But as I was ranting about earlier, there's still a problem with charging infrastructure in the UK. If you have to drive 5 minutes away from your house to go and charge your car up, some people might be willing to live with that if the benefits of zero emission charging are that important to them. But for me, it just came across as a real hassle and a real smack in the face of when I take my car off charge the next day and it costs half the amount that it does to do a full tank of petrol, bearing in mind that this still takes a tank of petrol. But if you live outside of a city and you can park your car in your drive and you have a way of charging up, I think a 330e is a really interesting proposition. It's a great car, it feels just like a 3 Series, and hey, this is the closest thing you'll get right now to an electric version of the 3 Series. But if you're driving a petrol car now and you're really excited about going electric, I would perhaps wait for the i4, see how much it's going to cost, see how much the range is. Because while the 330e is a brilliant car, it does feel like a little bit of a halfway house. Remember to head over to yesauto.com for all the latest deals on both new and used BMW 3 Series. And why not subscribe to the channel, because we've got plenty more videos like this and also some slightly more ridiculous ones.